Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Build the Weight Loss Practice of Your Dreams. I have a really special guest on today, and he's special to me because I actually utilize a lot of his research when I'm doing different presentations or when I'm researching things. And if you were on my last webinar that I did, you actually saw a whole slide with his information. He is truly I'm a numbers person, but he is the real deal in terms of numbers. And that is John LaRosa, and he is president and lead consultant with Market Data Enterprises. And they actually create a lot of research. I'm going to let him tell you the details, but he's the one who actually takes what's going on in the world, turns it into something that makes total sense. And also, the great thing about it is it can be predictive in terms of trends, what happened, and then what to expect for the future. And he always has his finger on the pulse. And so he does a lot of research, but we're going to focus today on research related to the weight loss industry. So this is information I know everybody is going to really enjoy hearing about. And he also has the world's largest store for market research, and it's pretty amazing. So John, I'm going to let you take it from here. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, yourself and also your corporation.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Carol. I originally was going to be a teacher. I was going to be a Spanish teacher, a language teacher. And I found after a year of teaching that I really didn't like it. It didn't stimulate me, and the pay was terrible. So I decided to switch to business, and I got an MBA in marketing in New York, where I grew up. And I went into the field of market research. When I got out of college, way back in 1977, I started working for a small market research company, and I just loved the work. It was like being an investigative journalist and putting all the pieces of a puzzle together about an industry or a market, and I just love that. So I've been in the field of market research now for over 40 years. And I've been looking at the weight loss market since 1989. I did work for 4 companies between 1977 and 1987, including a trade association, before going out on my own in 1987 and forming Market Data. So the way I got into looking at the weight loss market was originally I was doing reports about the electronics industry. And I found that there was a lot of competition. There were a lot of other publishing companies doing reports about electronics and electronic components. And I decided to diversify and look at other markets, especially ones that didn't have a trade association and where there was no report, there was no information about that market. So in 1989, I was looking at TV, and I was looking at Oprah Winfrey at the time, and she was fasting using a program called OptiFast, which is a liquid protein diet, fasting diet, and she lost something like 70 pounds on it, which was a dramatic weight loss. And I began to get curious about the weight loss market and all the articles and shows that were being done about it. And at that time, there was some question about the integrity of some of the weight loss companies and some of the deceptive advertising claims that were being put forth. So I found out that there was no trade association, no one representing the industry, and no one really knew how big it was or how fast it was growing. So that's when I decided to do the first report, an in-depth analysis of all segments of the weight loss market, including the medical programs, the commercial, the retail products, dieter demographics, diet soft drinks, health clubs, the whole ball of wax. So we came out with a report that was considered the definitive report about the industry. And it wound up being used by congressional subcommittees in 1990 that were investigating some of the industry's marketing practices. So that's how I got the start. And we've been doing this large report every 2 years since then, since 1989.
Wow, I actually didn't realize that history. So that's amazing. That's very fascinating. Tell us a little bit about how do you gather your data primarily, and then, of course, a little bit about interpretation.
Mhm. Well, we try to leave no stone unturned, and we we try to get a wide variety of sources that look at the market from different viewpoints. We looked at government agencies and any surveys they may have done. We look at trade associations. We look at annual reports if it's a publicly owned company, press releases, internet searches, websites. We do telephone surveys with top management. So all of those form the database of information that we put together. And then from that, we try to identify emerging trends and where the market is going. And we try to forecast the growth or contraction of the industry and what what are the factors affecting it. So it's really um, a comprehensive investigation from a wide variety of information sources.
Right. Wow. Well, I have to, for one, I'm very glad that you do that because I can imagine how time consuming that is. I mean, I can imagine to gather all that data and then to sit down and really interpret it and be an objective force for that.
Yeah, and I should mention that we're not commissioned or funded by anyone to do this research. We're completely independent, so
Mhm.
it's unbiased and objective information, and that's why people buy our reports.
Wow. I think sometimes you only know what you know, wherever you're working. So I think a lot of the listeners would be really interested because you have a much broader vision of this. And we may just know medical weight loss or just surgical weight loss or just some of the retail that sort of thing. Can you break it down in the current industry? How is it divided by different weight loss providers, from big box to medically supervised, to the different options that people have out there? Because it really is vast, and it's amazing to me. Sometimes we have physicians who I just respect so much. They've spent years and they have the research and they know what they're doing with their patients, and yet sometimes people will they'll utilize other sort of fad things, or just whatever looks good from a marketing perspective, like you're talking about. How does it break down for the weight loss industry in terms of market share?
Well, when most people think about the weight loss market, they think about the companies like Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig. And those are the ones that you see advertised the most because they have the biggest marketing budgets
Right.
to spend on national TV ad campaigns. So that segment of the market, well, the total market is probably about 70 or $72 billion right now when you consider the revenues of health clubs and diet soft drinks and artificial sweeteners and diet foods and medical programs and commercial programs. The commercial programs, like I just mentioned, like Weight Watchers, constitute about a $4 billion share of that 70 billion. So it's kind of small, but some people may not consider the revenues of health clubs to be part of the market, but we do. Then you have the medical weight loss programs, including bariatric surgery, which probably accounts for another $7 to $8 billion when you consider the surgery, the prescription diet drugs, the bariatricians, which are now called obesity medicine specialists. They changed the term.
Right.
And then you have VLCD programs, which stands for very low calorie diets. And the medical chains, which are like regional chains of franchises operated by probably 10 or 12 different companies. Then you have diet entrees and dinner entrees that are low-cal meals like lean cuisine. That's another couple of billion. You have meal replacements like shakes and nutrition bars such as Slim Fast and Atkins Nutritionals. That constitutes another $4 billion of the market. So, those are some of the big pieces. The health clubs industry, by the way, their revenues dropped about 35% last year because of the pandemic, but they're a $22 billion chunk. And the diet soft drinks is about another 19.5 billion.
Wow. So if I hear you correctly, then health clubs are actually have the largest portion of that, the 22 billion?
Yeah. Well, we like I said, we consider them part of the weight loss market because
Sure.
we figure that people are going to a health club to either lose weight or maintain weight,
Yeah.
and not just to look good and get
Right.
muscles.
Right. And it is expensive. Health clubs are. I mean, it seems like everything's expensive nowadays, but that definitely is something that is expensive. Since you have your finger on the pulse, tell me a little bit about what you've seen in your research from outcomes from the pandemic and how that affected the various different areas of weight loss
Well, yeah,
market.
some of course, a lot of the weight loss clinics and centers were closed for part of the year.
Mhm.
And we think that the medical weight loss programs uh, probably saw a 25 or 27% decline in revenues because
Mhm.
of those closures and seeing less patients. Of course, they were able to see patients virtually through Zoom meetings. And so they may have actually seen an increase in the number of patients last year. But overall, it was a horrible year for many industries, and the weight loss market is no exception. So,
Right.
so some of the mega trends that I think apply to dieters now is that you see people want to eat clean with no artificial ingredients, and millennials especially are they want to eat clean, and this trend definitely affects millennials as a group. And millennials are now the largest population group, even bigger than baby boomers. So they're going to represent the new generation of dieters going forward. Consumers also want high protein foods and drinks, and they have been in this trend for a couple of years now. We're also in a do-it-yourself diet cycle where 85% of dieters don't join a structured weight loss program, and they use things like meal replacements and easily obtainable diet products that they can get through retail or multi-level marketing. People are exercising at home more. They're buying home exercise equipment. They're using apps like Noom and MyFitnessPal. They're using equipment like Tonal and Mirror. And dieters are also looking for convenience and safety, the home delivery of foods. That's why Nutrisystem held up well last year, because they don't have any weight loss centers. They just deliver the food to your home, and they provide counseling by phone. So more consumers are using mail order, they're using internet websites and home delivery services like Nutrisystem and others to get their weight loss products. So those are some of the trends that we've seen last year and this year.
Yeah, well, I think that is actually it's very eye-opening. I don't think it's necessarily surprising, but eye-opening in a way that it requires those that provide medical weight loss or any sort of weight loss services. You're going to have to take all of that into account as you're creating your programs, as you're selecting your products, as you're determining how you're going to deliver your services and how you're going to be coaching your patients and what you're going to include in your program, that sort of thing, because it's an ever-changing environment out there. And if you're not keeping up with it, last year, I know I spent a lot of time with practices helping them pivot to online and apps and membership programs and things that they could do in their practice for retail sales and for their coaching and all that sort of thing virtually. So it's one of those things it just seems to be changing all the time. It's hard to keep up, but those trends that you just mentioned are really important for everyone to take to heart. And I know you see a lot of things, and I get asked this question, and I don't have as broad of, I mean, I work with practices across the US, but I don't have that scientific data like you do. But what do you see as sort of the typical gross revenues for medical weight loss programs versus profit, that sort of thing? What do you see in your research? Is that something that you're able to actually obtain some solid data for?
Yeah, because there, like I mentioned, there are about 12 companies that sell medical weight loss franchises, and we
Mm-hmm.
can obtain their franchise disclosure documents where they have the typical earnings of a franchise and
Sure.
typical earnings per center and their expenses and so forth. So here's a couple of facts about medical weight loss programs I think your listeners will appreciate and probably don't know about. But we find that the average medical weight loss program grosses about 560,000 per year with a gross profit margin of about 36%. Now, I'm sure as a consultant, you know, many companies and weight loss practices do more than that. Some do well over $1 million, some do less, but the average, the median is about 560,000. A typical medical weight loss program, as far as the cost to the consumer, costs about $850 to $1,200 for a 4-month program. And most people go on a weight loss program for 12 to 16 weeks. It can run as high as $3,500, depending on the amount of products that they buy and how long they stay on the plan and the amount of coaching that they receive or counseling. There are a variety of different types of weight loss companies. You have regional chains like Lindora and Medical Weight Loss of Michigan and Dr. G's and a bunch of others. There's 12 franchise companies that we've been able to identify and a few licensees also. Then you have hospital-based programs. You have individual doctors with a weight loss program who may be an internist or a general practitioner or a family doctor. And then you have the MDs that specialize in treating obesity, who are called bariatricians or obesity medicine specialists. So you've got about 4 or 5 different places where you can find a medical weight loss program, and you know, that's the structure of the market. And as I said before, we think that the revenues of the medical weight loss programs last year probably fell about 27%. And we think that this year they will recover about half of that loss, because this year it's kind of a year of 2 different halves. We're still don't have all the Americans vaccinated, and they probably won't be until the end of June or July. So the first half of the year is still going to be kind of rough in terms of getting patients to come in again. But then the second half of the year will probably have a lot of pent up demand, and you'll see a rush of patients coming in that gained all of that weight last year and are really motivated to join a program and lose the weight. And we'll see that in the second half of this year.
Right, right. Well, I really respect your data and what you're saying there. I know it can be different, of course, in different pockets of the country, and depending on what people are doing. And I saw practices last year who did the same or even more, depending on how they pivoted during that. And then, of course, the majority, I do agree with you. I think probably did see that fall off. And it's good to I really like at least hearing it from you, because it's such solid data that you're presenting for everybody. That's interesting. And then I know for us, even for like weight loss surgery, we were shut down for a couple months last year. And even this year, we're still restricted, starting January 1st when they started restricting us again. It has not been fully lifted yet. So definitely some things with that. It's a matter of, I always tell clinicians, it's really a matter of not really wringing your hands. It's a time to jump in there and figure out how you can support your patients, keep them on track, still attract more patients, keep them moving moving through that whole system that you have and do that in a real creative way. And that's been really helpful, I think, for the medical weight loss physicians and surgical weight loss, the bariatric surgeons as well. So
Yeah.
any other tips that you might be able to share, or ideas that you have, or thoughts about medical weight loss specifically? Most of the audience is are board certified bariatricians or obesity medicine specialists and bariatric surgeons.
Right.
So anything else specific to that industry that you see, and any I think it's hard to be, you compete against these big things. So I always teach people how to, not to compare yourself to the big box places. You just can't. You can't. It's like if you're an independent bariatric surgeon, you can't compare yourself to a health system. You don't have as deep a pocket. So you have to do things in a really unique, different way, and build that relationship really solidly and strongly with your patients. Is there any other advice that you have in order to help maintain our current market share and increase it in the over the short and long term?
Yeah, I think there are several areas of opportunity that doctors that are interested in weight loss should look at, especially treating people that have diabetes or pre-diabetes. I mean, the obesity levels in America are at record highs. 42.5% now are obese, and it doesn't seem to be declining. So, this is going to be with us for a long time into the future. Treating women with hormone imbalance tends to lead to weight gain. Reaching more patients through virtual meetings such as Zoom. And I should mention that virtual meetings are now covered by health insurance, just like in-person visits are. So, that's a change. And MDs may be thinking, oh, if I do a meeting over the phone or virtually, it's not going to be covered by insurance. It is. So don't worry about that. There's going to be pent-up demand this year for weight loss services of all kinds. And it's now apparent that obesity is directly related to more serious cases of COVID. So I think consumers in general are more concerned about their health and maintaining their health and wellness. So I think they may take weight loss programs more seriously. Also, another area of opportunity for doctors is educating patients about various ways that they can pay for a medical weight loss program that they may not be aware of. And I would venture to say that a lot of doctors themselves are not aware of this. Care credit accounts, which offer installment plans to pay for a medical weight loss program. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, has a preventative health benefit, which is worth $1,600 per year in wellness services, and that covers weight loss. That can be used to pay for a program. Health savings accounts and flexible savings accounts, and even IRS tax credits. So where some consumers may think that a medical weight loss program is more expensive than a commercial program like Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig, in many cases it's not. So that's an opportunity for MDs to educate the public that it's an affordable program for them if they take advantage of these credits.
Sure. I don't think I've ever seen, you probably have this number, but I've not read it in any of your data. But do you know for medical weight loss, what percentage is insurance-based versus cash-based? Do you have any data for that?
I haven't seen any data on that. I do know that if you have a food, company foods, if you have a medical weight loss program that's selling diet foods or meal replacements like shakes and nutrition bars, that part of it is not covered. It's just the initial exam with the MD, the lab tests, the counseling, the coaching, the service part of the program is reimbursed, but not any ingestible items like foods or supplements.
Right, right. And it seems as if reimbursements are tending to go down, which is a deterrent. It's or a difficult state for the physician who's providing. It's very labor and time intensive, and then reimbursements are going down, which has been a problem. I work with both cash pay based weight loss programs as well as insurance, and I think for anyone out there listening, I mean, the biggest thing is to have your vision in mind, know who you want to work with, and then differentiate yourself. So if everyone else in town is doing cash pay, then differentiate yourself that you accept insurance.
Right,
And for
right.
those that are cash pay, kind of just really talk about what it is that you're offering in a unique way that helps justify the cost to the patient. So there's lots of different ways to do that. But I just had to ask that since I had you right here, I had to take advantage of the opportunity to ask you that.
Yeah.
You've really done, now you not only do research in weight loss, your whole corporation actually does it across many different arenas, right?
Yeah, we cover a wide variety of service and healthcare sectors. Um, Everything from commercial cleaning services to daycare centers to collection agencies, med spas, mostly healthcare.
Yeah,
Um, but the weight loss market has been our specialty, our
yeah,
main specialty since 1989. So
yeah,
we do a lot of consulting and custom research, and I do a lot of teleconference calls with people who want to start a weight loss program or invest in it, or and they may be investing in weight loss stocks like Weight Watchers or
yeah.
Fast or Herbalife, and they want a status report of the market. So yeah, we're pretty diversified in terms of the service sectors that we cover. Uh,
Right.
I just want to make a couple of predictions for the market,
Yep.
if I may.
Love that.
I think the weight loss programs that I think will survive and grow are the ones that provide a mix of virtual and in-person services.
Mhm.
You can't really offer just one or the other. I think today you have to offer both.
Yeah.
I think competition is going to increase. It's a very crowded market, and it always has been for the last 30 years, and especially from new high-tech startups. We're going to see more virtual companies like Noom emerge, backed by venture capital. And I think we're going to see more consolidation of medical weight loss programs, more local and regional clinics and chains and physician practices will be combined to increase their research and their reach and efficiency and their marketing clout. So I think those are three main trends or future predictions that we have.
I tend to agree with those. And then it's a matter of how do you embrace change and, and make it through those predictions. But I do tend to agree with you.
Mm.
Wow, you have just shared a lot of information to help people prepare for the future, understand what's been happening, understand where the market is going. And really, I think given a broader viewpoint, even though we all know that there's lots of different competitors out there, really how that all plays out in the market. So that's been really, really helpful. You
Mhm.
talked a little bit about some of the services that you provide. So talk a little bit more about that and how people can reach out to you or your company.
Sure. Well, as I said, we've been looking at the weight loss market for 32 years. We published about 50 some odd in-depth market research reports about the market, covering all 9 segments, like I mentioned, medical, commercial, retail, multi-level marketing. And these reports help physicians who are new to weight loss to understand, to really get a deep understanding of who they're competing with and what kind of programs are out there and what they're charging and how profitable they are, and what untapped market niches may be out there waiting to be served. So we even wrote a guide on how to launch a successful medical weight loss program, which we have available. The largest report that we do, which I'm updating now, about a week away from releasing, is called the US Weight Loss and Diet Control Market. And that's going to be something like a 400-page analysis with profiles of all the leading players from Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem, all the medical chains, the franchises, Atkins, Herbalife, etc. That's coming out soon. Our main website is marketdataenterprises.com, where you can find tables of contents and descriptions of all our studies, and you can order them there at our online store. We also offer a free website called dietbusinesswatch.com, which is updated daily with weight loss market news, company developments, my blog posts, and commentary, and other relevant information. So check that website. That's a freebie. We have a lot of good information and analysis. Any new studies that come out by other people and forecasts are covered there.
Right. I've hung out on that page a little bit, so I can attest to that. And I'm appreciative that you do this research so that, so we're busy taking care of patients. It's hard to do everything. So we're so grateful that you're there and, really keeping an eye on all of that. Now, you're a busy guy doing all these different things. I always like to include, part of being a healthcare professional or whatnot is to take care of ourselves. And so anytime I have somebody on the show, I always like to talk a little bit about how do you take care of yourself? What's some of your little tips, if there's anything that you have to share?
Well, I think the key to my longevity in this profession is that I love it. I just love what I do. It's still interesting to me. It's still my passion. And like I said, it's like being an investigative journalist where you're putting all the pieces of a puzzle together to tell you what's happening in a market. And it never gets boring for me because I'm looking at a different industry every 2 months. It takes us about 2 months to do a typical report, a little longer for the weight loss report because it's a bigger study. But in any given year, I'm looking at 6 or 7 different industries that each have their own characteristics and nuances. So it's just interesting to me. As far as keeping in shape, I like to play golf. I like to bowl. I still bowl on a league. And I like to compete in tournaments, and I compete in a league where we have people that are anywhere from 18 years old up to 75 years old. And bicycle.
And you ride your bike, right? You're a bike rider? Did I hear?
Yeah. Well, the weather is good here in Florida, so I like to get out and get on the golf course and take bike rides and so forth.
Yeah. Especially now. Yeah, Florida's pretty. So, wow. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time with your busy schedule, joining me today for the podcast. And we'll have some details about how to reach John's website and all that sort of thing in the show notes. And anything else that you wanted to share?
Not that I can think of. Just check dietbusinesswatch.com and see when our report's coming out, and you'll have all the details in there.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Everybody, thanks so much for all you do each and every day. John, thanks for your time again. And until the next time, you all have a great day and continue improving the health of your community. Take care.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Bye now.